Well, good evening, internets. It's me, DP Knudten, for another edition of Bookward Bound, my ongoing 300-day slog through the swamp, or 301-day slog through the swamp, as I seek the self-publication of a brand new book called NONFICTION BRAND, Discover, Craft, and Communicate the Completely True, Completely You brand you already are. And that's what I'm doing every night for 301 consecutive days. In fact, tonight, this is the 17th of October. No, it's the 16th of October. And so that means it's night 224 since the Friday, March 5th, that I've been coming down here and working on the book in one form or another. Crazy, I know. It's like really crazy, especially when I don't want to be down here on a Friday night after working all week and I'm tired and I just want to stare at a TV screen for a while. Well, I can't do that because I made a commitment to you and to myself to actually get this thing done over 301 days. Yep, start a new book from scratch, get it done in 301 days so I can upload it to Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing platform on January 1st, 2021. It's a tall order, but it's an order that I gave myself, and so I'm going to see my way to actually getting this thing done by doing, as I said, working on it every night. Now, what am I going to work on tonight? Well, last night, we left our hero in Scrivener, which is the application I'm actually using to write this book, and you can see it right here. The big window, that's where you write the book portion of the book. The side pane over here, that's where you've got all your sections or chapters, whatever, however you want to construct your book. You can that's where you can figure that out. So last night I was working on a section called The Undeniable Attractivity of Vulnerability. And yes, attractivity is a word. I actually had to look it up to verify it, but it is, in fact, a word. And it has to do with this Audubon bird call, and it also has to do with a guy named George B. Thomas. And actually, I should get a photo of his. Why don't we do that? Let's go over to the Safari. And George B. Thomas. And see what comes up in Google Images. Because I can always ask George for a better photo. But he's lost so much weight. I'm definitely going to have to. And he's lost a ton of weight. And I'm sure because of the story that we're telling here that I want to get one of those, hey, dude, you look great photos. So I'm going to have to do that later. I'll get in touch with him via email and have him send me a more recent photo showing his svelteness. But in the meantime, I need to take an extended quote that he gave during the NONFICTION Brand podcast episode, the most recent one I did with him, that hasn't even come out yet. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's not coming out this Monday or the Monday after, but maybe the Monday after that. So sometime in November, I'm going to air 2 consecutive episodes with George B. Thomas. And in the second of the 2 episodes, he came out with this fantastic quote here. And I think what I want to do is I want to back up and I want to read through this aloud. And this is a big tip that I give people who want to write books. Just because you're a writer does not mean you can't or shouldn't periodically read it aloud, because there's no better way to discover what I think of as rocky copy. You know, the stuff that you'll stub your toe on. There's no better way to find those stub your toe obstacles than reading it aloud. If you can read it clean and clear with no stumbles, it's pretty good copy. May not be brilliantly written, but at least it doesn't have built-in obstacles. So a lot of times I'll do exactly what I'm going to do right now, which is read it aloud. So I'm going to start right up here. Why do we rubberneck? To see, sympathize, and celebrate. It's not us. Ever notice just how much of your Facebook feed is dedicated to the social media equivalent of freeway rubbernecking? Try this test. Head on over to your feed, then scroll down counting the number of injured bird, fender bender type things you run into. Try it again on the algorithmically created watch feed, Keep in mind that watch feed is continually being calibrated to keep you watching longer. It serves you up the stuff that forces you to stay on site longer. Watching longer. I don't want to say longer. Stay on site. As long to stay on site, comma, scrolling down as long as they can possibly make you. As long as they can possibly make you. Keep in mind the watch feed is continually scrolling down, is continually being calibrated to keep you watching longer. It serves you up the stuff that forces you to stay on site, scrolling down as long as they can possibly. I don't like that. The stuff that engages the deep parts of your brain, almost forcing you to stay on the site. Rather than the quick, I'll just hop over to see what's happening, see what's up. Family, friends, check in. You thought you were. Now count the number of reality show catfights, soldier family reunions, lost keep. Let's do forlorn pet adoptions, first date flameouts, massive fails, tearful confessionals, and weak person flips the script and owns the bully situations they serve up. Let's say just about all of those addictive video clips are about some form of human vulnerability. All of those, just about all of those video clips, those manipulative, those deliciously manipulative video clips are about some form of human vulnerability. And they are the video version of whatever addictive substance of what, and they are the video version of whatever addictive substance you can think of. Video version. And they are the video version of whatever, of crack. They are the video version of meth. No, they are the whatever addictive substance you prefer. How about that? Prefer and avoid. You prefer. You prefer. As you've read already, about what the heck's that? As you've read already, I love the work and wisdom of Brene Brown. I love the work and wisdom. Her research on vulnerability has been a massive influence on my thinking about this core idea for creating social media activity that attracts, engages, and converts. It all comes down to vulnerability. Vulnerability. Her research on vulnerability. It really does all come down to vulnerability. Let me give you a living, breathing example of this that's happening right now. Let's make that a long dash. I learned this lesson years ago, and we may have talked about it on a previous years ago. See, I want to trim out some of the fat in this quote. I don't. Wait. I don't know. No, that we'll get rid of it. The magic. The magic moments of your life will only happen when you are secure enough to be vulnerable. When you are secure enough to be vulnerable. Yeah, see, that's a bad transcription. To be, and I was taught this. And let's put when I was taught this, I was sitting at Cheesecake Factory with Marcus Sheridan. I was getting ready for to do my first keynote speech. He said, if you do not share with the folks this piece of information, we talked about piece of information we talked about, it won't be magical. And I said, you are out of your mind. I have been running from that for 25 years, not sharing that piece of information. By the way, I've done the things that I've done to become the person that I've become, and I'm a high school dropout. But I wasn't going to tell anybody that information. It was on a need-to-know basis. Need-to-know basis. And frankly, you didn't need to know, right? Lowercase. And he was like, if you will be vulnerable, if you will do that for your first keynote out of the gate, it will be magical. And so I was like, okay. So my first screen of the keynote, let's do this. Shrink the lighting up a little bit so it's a little tighter. So people can see that it's all related. The italics help that as well. If you will be vulnerable, if you will do that for your first keynote out of the gate, comma, it will be magical. And so I was like, okay. So my first screen of the keynote, it was a black screen. White text. It was a black screen with white text that says, "I am a high school dropout." The crowd started laughing, and I quietly said, "I am a high school dropout." There was a couple of little haha, and then all of a sudden, dead quiet. You could hear a pin drop, and I said for a third time, "I am a high school dropout." The rest of the keynote was about marketing and analyzing, but everybody was listening for the entire time because I was willing to be vulnerable. And my call to action to everybody listening to this DP would be that they would just be secure enough to be vulnerable, just long enough to see that magic moment happen. Because once you see it, once you're like, "I'm in it to win it, I will do this for the rest of my life." And at that keynote, I had a lady come up to me and she said, "Hey, your math teacher story, because by the way, I'm a high school dropout. I'm a high school dropout because a math teacher told me I would never amount to anything, and I believed him. So be careful what you believe, people." She said, "I really connect with your math teacher story. For me, that was my mother." And we sat and talked for 20 minutes about family and forgiveness. And when she walked out the door, I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. George B. Thomas, blah, 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 episode whatever. George B's, I gotta say George's dropout story. Dropout slide at the top of his keynote was his Audubon bird call. He may have been the only high school dropout in the room, but I bet he wasn't. And the story about the math teacher? Question mark? We all have one of those in our lives, or worse, families. By taking the courageous step to tell his complete truth from the very first moment of his presentation, he activated the undeniable attractivity of vulnerability. And the result? Beyond anything he could have imagined just minutes before. So the moral of George's story: by being bold and vulnerable, George earned his way into the hearts and minds, into the hearts and minds of his audience members. By activating the innate empathy that exists within. Think his story resonated. Think his story was his alone, not by a long. It's his alone. Think his story was his alone? No. No. Not. It's a story We all have our own versions of it buried inside. Burning and bare. We have all. We all have our version. Let's see. By being bold and vulnerable, George earned his way into the hearts and minds of his audience members by activating the innate empathy that exists within. Within, inside. Yeah, I don't like that. That exists within. Think his story was his alone? Not at all. We all have our own versions. And feel all the closer George, because he shared, he dared, something like that. How about that? We're at 1271 words for the section. That'll make it about 4 pages, but this is just a placeholder image for now. And then I need a placeholder. George. Dun, 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 dun. Go and put George. Talk about, maybe I won't have his photo in. Or this would be the place to put it. And then a caption which would read what? Takes guts to live life. Live to live authentically. It takes guts to live authentically. And one of the greatest things I've learned from George is that vulnerability is the proof of authenticity. Authenticity are close siblings or something like that. I don't know, close siblings. I'm not necessarily loving that. So that'll be a caption to the headshot. Yeah. All right. So 1290 words, if I click on that, it'll tell me average sentence length, which is always around 15. Yep. Reading time, about 5 minutes. So each of my sections is about a 5-minute read, which I think is good because it'll be the type of thing where you can, if you're eating lunch, read a section. If you're, it should be very easy to get through this book. But hopefully you'll be stopping and highlighting stuff or making notes the entire time. When I was a grad student in the drive to campus. I would have to drive to campus on one of these notes every day. One game I played is long was never hit the brakes. And that's what I did. And that's what I did. Oh gosh. All right, so I'm kind of violating and trying to never brake pedal in order to maintain a sometimes slow but always moving forward motion. Don't look. Okay. I think I'm going to leave this now because I don't want to burn out and because I'm tired and because I want to be done for tonight. So when my brain is telling me, are we done yet? The answer oftentimes is, yeah, we're done now, because I've got 77 days left in this journey, and I've already done 224, and I've done it by not burning myself out. So I'm not going to burn myself out tonight. Instead, I'm going to say goodnight. But before I do, I want to thank you for helping me, because you are the reason I keep doing this every single night, because you're frankly peer pressure, and I appreciate it. You're the kick in the butt I need to actually work on this thing. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which comes out every single Monday. I'll be editing a brand new episode tomorrow on Saturday that'll come out the following Monday, and it's going to be featuring Paul Raimondo from Perth, Australia. He's a hoot, man. I love having conversations with him, and that will be coming out at 3 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Monday, October. Today is the 17th or 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. October 19th at 3 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's when the new podcast will be coming out. It'll be episode 113, I believe. And you can get it wherever you get fine podcasts for free. And if you, I'm just going to leave it there. So check out the podcast wherever you get podcasts for free. And I'll see you tomorrow night. But until then, theme music, take us on out. I'll see you tomorrow.